Hello, this is Strategy Miscellany, and this is episode 7 of our Kerbal Space Program campaign. This is the sunrise launch of a probe to Minmus, Minmocod 2. So 3, 2, 1, ignition. This is a lot like the probe we sent to the moon, but because we have more advanced engines now, the structure looks a bit different. This first stage, we have this broad lifting stack with the 3 solid rocket boosters on it. Then we break off the solid rocket boosters, and it's essentially a single stage to orbit. It's going to get us, well, single stage if you include the boosters as part of the same stage. It's going to get us most of the way into a stable orbit. The second stage will get us the rest of the way, and then get us onto a direct trajectory that impacts Minmus, and then the lander stage will actually land on Minmus and set us up to a reasonable landing spot, and hopefully we can do a little hop and land in 2 places. So we're getting up towards 10,000 feet, time to start leaning over. And pretty soon it'll be time to take the boosters off, too. I apologize. I said this was a sunrise launch. It looks like this is actually a sunset launch. And let's see. Okay, time to angle this so that it's flying basically aligned with its velocity vector so we don't have any parts crash into it when we detach here. Let go of the boosters. And start properly healing over to a flat 90 degrees because we're starting to get out of the atmosphere. You can see the stars coming out. I did turn off the city lights textures on Kerbin. I think it just looks better without them. So you'll notice that a little bit different. And I will cut back to you once we are in orbit. You've seen these launches a million times by now. We are now completing our circularization with our transfer stage. You see the periapsis going up here. Alright, I'd say that's sufficiently circular. So now we just have to find where our Minmus is right now. There it is. It has a slight amount of angle, so we might have to do a slight adjustment here. Although we're actually going to be meeting it around the point where it crosses the equator of Kerbin, it looks like. So, shouldn't be too much of a problem. It is slightly farther out than the moon, so it takes a little bit more delta V. But yeah, you can see we're high above it, so I'm going to do a bit of a second maneuver here. The nice thing with Kerbal Space Program is you can plot 2 maneuvers at once. Alright, that's pretty good. So we warp to the first maneuver. I will see you at the burn. Here we are again over the deserts of Kerbin, the sun setting behind us. Well, still pretty high in the sky from up here, but we're moving around the world pretty fast too. And we'll do our burn here. Basically, this is our transfer burn to get to Minmus. I'll cut back to you at the adjustment phase. We're now about halfway out to Minmus, and you can see Kerbin and the moon there behind us. And we're just doing our adjustment burn. We have to go downwards out of plane a little bit, mostly, just so that we actually intersect Minmus. All right. Continue flying on. You can see our weather station is still doing its work. Back on Kerbin. As is the mystery goo at the Antarctic Observation Station. Now we're basically just waiting for Minmus to catch up. And we have transferred into Minmus's sphere of influence. Now I'm going to wait and get a little bit closer, and then we'll go ahead and decelerate. This is a nice picture, though. You can see the whole Kerbin system at once there. The moon, the Kerbin, the Minmus, our ship. Nice shot. So we're going to get a little closer, and then I'm going to put our transfer stage on an impact trajectory with Minmus. Here should be a good spot to do that. So we want to decelerate, and we also want to turn a little bit. Yeah, something like that. You can see Minmus has these big flat sections. Looks a little bit different than the version in the old mod. This one's definitely more of an ice ball, which may or may not make sense at this distance from the sun. I believe for the Kerbal Space Program 2 sequel, they're giving it more of a, almost a ceramic look, I would say. All right, we can go ahead and detach the stage. We overbuilt this a little bit, so we have that room. Go ahead and retract, extend the landing gear. And this is our lander stage. You can see it's got a couple of science modules. It's got these little fuel tanks and little engines on the sides. It's got batteries, it's got solars, it's got communicators. It's a good little ship. So let's find a landing spot for it. I think the first thing I'm going to do is land in one of those big ice flats. It's a nice, easy place to land. It's one of the unique features of Minmus, so it's a nice place to try for a landing in. Let's get a little closer first. So now that we're a little closer, going to sort of prepare myself for a landing on that little section of ice there. And Minmus is rotating beneath me, so that's why I'm kind of overshooting it a little bit this way. All right, that's a good start. Let's fall towards the planet again, or the moon. Quite a small moon at that. Yeah, as you can see, the gravity on Minmus is not very much at all. This little ship has 36 times the acceleration of the gravity of Minmus. Just a little tiny place. Alright, I've got my nav ball aligned to the surface now. Let's get a little closer and then we'll decelerate. We're falling right into this sort of peninsula of this ice sheet, or maybe a bay if you consider it like a lake. And these ice sheets are at the 0 altitude for Minmus, so there's no difference between these two radar readings. Time to get this pointing straight up with its velocity vector. And decelerate a bit more as we approach the surface. Thousand meters up. $500. 'And we have touchdown on Minmus for the first time. There's the sun. Kerbin should be up here somewhere because I'm getting a signal from it. Maybe it's just behind one of these hills, though, and we're getting enough of kind of a wraparound signal that we're still able to connect with it. Well, let's start the experiments. And start sending them home. Well, it is fairly cold on Minmus. It is below freezing, so maybe it makes sense that it is frozen on the surface. Especially since we are on the day side. So we do have over 1,500 meters per second of delta V left. We might even be able to get home with that. It's definitely plenty to try and get to a different biome. So let's do that. Let's try going to the poles. One of the poles of Minmus. Why not the North Pole? As you can see, you don't need that much velocity to really get going on Minmus. Somewhere like there. That looks good. Should still be in the sun and able to phone home to Kerbin, and should be in the polar region. So we'll do our little hop here over the surface. You can see these higher parts that also have some kind of flat regions on them. Minmus may be in the future a great place for in situ resource utilization for mining ore off of it and processing it into fuel and then refueling ships that are going to leave the Kerbin system because the gravity of Minmus is so low that it's pretty easy to boost a tanker up from Minmus to a ship in Minmus orbit and refuel said ship. So later in the campaign, we may have a whole mining base on Minmus. Long way in the future right now, though. All right, we're getting up to the polar regions here. Let's start decelerating. And let's do an observation from close up. I don't think we've done a close pass on Minmus yet, so this is also new. Oops, overburned a little bit, so we're actually going up now. So let's burn the other way a little bit. There we go. Now we're basically falling straight down over this chunk of the surface here. Which this bit is almost 7,000 meters up. Minmus is pretty elevation variant. It's pretty vertical because it's so low gravity, probably. You know, if you took a mountain of this scale and scaled it up to Kerbin, it would be poking out of the atmosphere. And we're 1,000 meters up over the polar flats. Now, I think I see a feature of some sort over there. Might have to go investigate that real quick after we do our science experiments at the landing site here. All right, touchdown on the polar flats. At least I think these are polar flats. Yep, this is the poles, all right. Let's transmit our observations home. Oh, and just to note, Minmus, as you might expect, has no atmosphere. All right, science done. I want to see what that little surface feature is. Oh, there's Kerbin floating in the sky. And the moon. That's a nice shot. This might have to be the thumbnail for the video, something like this. Gives it that real magnificent desolation look. Easy to get yourself going too fast on Minmus. Too fast upwards, anyway. Pretty soon we'll be flying right over that, and it'll be time to just stop our horizontal motion. Or if not right over it, at least close enough that this should be a good start. All right. And stop the horizontal motion. All right, let's get it flowing slightly this way now. We'll stop the horizontal again in just a second. All right, now we can fall straight down from 400 meters, and we can get a good look at what this surface feature is. Looks like a big rock or ice outcropping of some sort. Don't want to quite be in its shadow. Make it harder for our ship to recharge. But yeah, somewhere like here, this looks good. Unfortunately, we don't yet have the technology to put a scanning arm on our probe to actually do a scan of the material of that. Actually, this is our thumbnail shot. Our probe, the outcropping, the poles of Minmus, Kerbin, the moon. This is a perfect shot. All right, we can go back to the Space Center now and spend our bounty of scientific research. So we can get advanced electrics, get some actually solar panels we can spread out, better batteries. I think I'll go ahead and do that. Ah, there's one of those scanning arms I was talking about. Here's some little tiny engines for little tiny probes. And these separatrons here to help you do stage separations, basically. Here's some big fuel tanks. And here's some better aerodynamic parts of different sorts. Or some supersonic engines and other supersonic flight related parts. I think I'm going to get these because before we send our mission to Minmus, I do want to demonstrate briefly how to build a plane. So initially, I was going to include building an airplane and flying it around on this episode, but the episode's getting long enough already. And also, when I did my plane test, I did not build it with very good landing gear, so it was very unstable on takeoff and actually crashed on landing. So I'll have to do this another time with an actually good plane. I might actually first do a crewed landing on Minmus next episode, though. So this is the end of episode 7. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.